Sehr geehrte
Shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you today here at Grugahalle in Essen on behalf of the Supervisory Board and the Board of Management. In my capacity as Chairman of the Supervisory Board, I will chair this meeting, which is in line with our Articles of Association. I'd like to open this year's Annual General Meeting of Uniper SE punctually at 10 o'clock. Since we met here at Essen for the first public Annual General Meeting here at Essen, a very checkered year has gone by. This year was characterized by the planned takeover of Totem, which was also characterized by the major amount of confidence of the majority of our shareholders. So on this note, I'd like to particularly welcome you. I'd like to thank you for your trust as shareholders in Uniper SE, and I'd like to thank you for coming in such large number. Besides shareholders and shareholder representatives, I'd also like to welcome the interested guests and representatives of the media. The Board of Management and the Supervisory Board of the company are here in full today. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to them as well. Let me move on to the formalities of this AGM. I officially establish that today's AGM was convened in due form and in good time, as it was promulgated in the Federal Gazette on the 20th of April 2018. In addition, on the 11th of May 2018, the request of a shareholder to supplement the agenda was published in the Federal Gazette in due form and in good time. All disclosures in connection with the invitation, including the accessibility of the respective documents, have been made on the internet pages of Uniper SE in good form and time. The brochure with the agenda and draft proposals, including the supplement to the agenda, were also sent to you. Since the new GDPR of the European Union took into effect on the 25th of May 2018, we've also given you information with regard to how we manage personal data. Besides the documents sent to you with the invitation, this is available to you at the information desk in the lobby, where you can also inspect other documents. Such documents in particular are the annual statements and the consolidated statements of the company for the fiscal year 2017, including the summary management report and the report from the Supervisory Board. As is tradition, Notary Public Dr. Iriger will take the minutes. He's sitting to my left. Dr. Iriger will take a printout of the invitation documents and the agenda supplement and the draft resolutions as an attachment to the minutes. The register of shareholders here themselves or represented is currently being drafted. When it is completed, it will be available on the opposite side of the rostrum, that is on the right, back there, and can be inspected there in electronic form. Changes during the meeting will be continuously updated. As soon as this register is completed, and we have first attendance figure, I'm going to inform you. The attendance area includes this room and accessible adjacent rooms next to the access control. This is where the AGM is also broadcast. As long as you don't leave this area, you will thus stay in the attendance area, as it were. However, you can only participate in voting and request the floor. You can only file motions and ask questions here in this room. Any and all items on the agenda will be discussed in the general debate. You can also become involved with your own contributions and ask questions to the Board of Management. If you'd like to do so, please request the floor, stating your name and stating what you would like to speak about or ask questions about at the speaker's desk, which is to my right, here, next to the rostrum. This is where you will also be given a form if you want to request the floor. If you would like to raise a point of order, or if you would like to speak about the rules of procedure, would you also please register at the speaker's desk so I can also decide about how we deal with it? As for the actual debate, I'm also going to give you additional explanations before we start it. After the general debate, we're going to cast a vote on the draft resolutions. You will sound a gong at the beginning of the voting. At the beginning of the voting, I'm going to explain the process of the voting as well in detail. But I'd like to point out already now that you only need your AGM ticket to participate. You received it when you came in exchange for your admission ticket. A voting carnet, as you might know it from the past or from other AGMs, will not be necessary this year either. If you have several admission tickets for various stocks, please exchange each of them into an AGM ticket. This is the only way for you to make sure that all shares you represent can be registered on our record and can be considered in voting later on. The votes will then be collected with your AGM ticket or AGM tickets in electronic form later on during voting. I'm going to present the actual proceedings later on, but please keep an eye and pay attention to your AGM ticket in any case. In the interest of all shareholders participating, I will try to keep this AGM as brief and swift as possible. But should you leave the AGM before it ends, please present your AGM ticket at the exit controls. You can also authorize another participant to perform your voting right on your behalf, or you can also grant authority to the proxy holders of Uniper SE associated with instructions. You can use the form, the authorization form, on your AGM ticket for this purpose. Please give this to the other participant or the proxy holders of Uniper SE at exit controls. The opening of the AGM by myself and the speech of the CEO, Herr Schäfer, are being broadcast live on the internet and will also be made available from there. And last but not least, may I point out that audio and video recordings are only possible up to the beginning of the general debate for this purpose, and it is only allowed if you don't disturb any other participants attending. Ladies and gentlemen, let us move on to the agenda. This year, the agenda comprises 6 items that you know from the invitation brochure, or that you can see in the invitation brochure, so I can be brief. Item number 1 concerns the presentation of the annual financial statements and the consolidated financial statements for Uniper for the financial year 2017, together with the combined management report for Uniper SE and the Uniper Group for the financial year 2017. On this note, I'd like to hand over to the CEO in order to speak about the documents under this agenda item. Herr Schäfer, it's all yours.
Uniper shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my colleagues on the Board of Management, Christoph Delbrück, Eckhard Rümmler and Keith Martin, I'd like to welcome you to the Grugahalle in Essen for this year's annual general meeting. For the energy industry and for Uniper, these are exciting times, and I'm pleased to see you here as owners. Your presence shows that you're interested in how we're faring in the current environment. I'd of course also like to welcome all shareholder representatives of the press and all other guests and friends of Uniper, particularly our retirees. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 2 years, together we've built up your Uniper to what it is today. I'm certain you will permit me to begin with a topic that illustrates this performance particularly well, our share price. At Uniper's first annual general meeting a year ago, I was able to report an impressive 75% increase in our share price since its listing in September 2016. This upward trend has continued. As of yesterday evening's closing price, we're talking about a share price of 26.87 euros, a more than 50% increase relative to the price at the time of last year's annual general meeting. It's an increase by more than 50%, as I said, and our market capitalization is currently at about 9.8 billion euros. And even though this reflects an element of takeover speculation, it's based just as much on our solid business performance and on the investors' faith in our business model and in the company's future value. This not only makes us proud on the board of management, proud of what we've already accomplished, it also gives me the opportunity, on behalf also of my colleagues on the board of management, to say thank you to our employees, and thank you also to our managers. All of them have worked tirelessly for the company and actively supported the management board at a time of immense challenges and fundamental changes in our business and corporate environment. We look forward to continuing to work with this motivated and committed team. It has played a crucial role in our success to date. Our people's profound expertise and commitment are the best prerequisites for leading our company successfully into the future. So once again, many thanks to all our employees. Such dedication presupposes that all employees feel comfortable and, most importantly, safe in their working environment. Health, safety, and security are top priorities in everything we do. We're working continually to further improve our standards in these areas beyond what we've already achieved today. This effort is supported by group-wide programs and guidelines that take into account the safety requirements in the various countries in which we operate, although we regularly go well beyond these standards. Health, safety and security are also the focus of a 3-year rolling improvement plan that sets ambitious targets for further improvement in all of these areas. It's important that we monitor our progress towards these targets on a regular basis. Our main safety metric is combined total recordable incident frequency, or TRIF, which measures the number of incidents per million hours of work experienced by employees and contractors at all our business units, including Russia. I'm particularly pleased and proud that our 2017 TRIF of 1.53 per million hours of work was our best ever TRIF. It means that we again improved our safety performance relative to the previous year, when our TRIF was 1.68. This performance is a reflection of the special care we take of our employees and contractors' employees' health and well-being. But every accident is always one too many. That's why we'll continue to place significant emphasis on this issue in the current year as well. Your company's primary mission is to provide reliable and demand-based supply of energy, i.e. electricity, gas and other energy sources. Our ambition is for Uniper's technologically advanced and highly efficient generation portfolio in Europe and Russia to continue to make an important contribution to system stability and security of supply in the various electricity markets. For us to live up to this ambition, our power plants must be highly reliable in technical terms. Reserve power plants which ensure the stability of the electricity grid face special demands in this context. These power plants are frequently ramped up and ramped down again at short intervals and must do so with ever greater frequency, and the rest of the time they must remain in standby mode. I can assure you that Uniper's generation portfolio, which provides about half of Germany's reserve capacity, fully meets these requirements, even though there are still problems with regard to the market design for the remuneration of these power plants, but I'll say more about this later. Our strong gas portfolio, consisting of long-term supply contracts, stakes in pipelines, gas storage facilities, and our LNG trading business, is another way we ensure security of supply. This past winter, which wasn't particularly cold, but simply arrived very late, amply demonstrated the importance of our portfolio once again. By the end of the winter, German storage facilities were only about 50% full, which is very close to the operational limit of most storage facilities. Alongside the important contribution our asset portfolio makes to security of supply, we're committed to continue reducing its environmental impact. From 2005, the first year of the EU emissions trading scheme, to the year-end 2017, we reduced carbon emissions of our generation assets in Europe by about 60% in absolute terms. And so they declined much more than was foreseen under the EU's current climate targets. For the years 2018 to 2020, we've set, i.e. the next 3 years, we've set a carbon intensity target of 500 grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour on average. For the decade ahead, we see the potential for further reductions, in part because of our stable hydro and nuclear power businesses, the impact on our portfolio of the possible coal exit in many European countries, and a generally greater use of climate-friendly natural gas. You'll find more details and information about our efforts to protect the environment in our 2017 sustainability report, which we published today. Ladies and gentlemen, there have been developments in many of our assets and projects since our last annual general meeting. I'll now provide you with a brief overview of these developments. A lot has happened, for instance, in our Russian activities. I'll start with the sale of our stake in Yuzhno-Russkoye gas field. After the prolonged process of obtaining all the necessary regulatory approvals, the transaction was closed last December as planned. Now, this sale enabled us to meet our debt reduction target very quickly and in full. And this was a very important success for Uniper's future. Let's stay in Russia, and I'll turn to Berezovskaya 3, our generation unit under construction. The work to repair the damage caused by a fire 2 years ago is on schedule and on budget. Past January, I again visited the construction site to get a personal impression of the work being done there, and I can assure you that I was extremely impressed by the extraordinary commitment of the employees of Uniper, our subsidiary in Russia, and the contractor employees. They're highly motivated and demonstrate impressive teamwork as they carry out the repairs. And they're undeterred by icy Siberian winter temperatures, which during my visit hovered around minus 37 degrees centigrade. The new generation unit is scheduled to go on stream in the third quarter of 2019. Nord Stream 2, the second of the tandem pipelines for transporting Russian natural gas across the Baltic Sea to Germany, is another project related to Russia. Uniper is one of the project's 5 financing partners, all of which are renowned Western energy companies. As you no doubt know, the project is subject of extensive, at times highly polemic and regrettably also emotional debate among policymakers, academics and the media. These discussions are not only about whether the project makes sense as a gas infrastructure, but also about possible political consequence. Opinions range from full support to complete rejection. 2 points are particularly important to me in this regard. First, from a gas point of view, I'm firmly convinced that gas will play a key role in the energy transition in Germany and Europe. Europe therefore needs to ensure that it will continue to have stable and reliable gas supply at economically justifiable prices. Europe's domestic gas production is declining. Our Dutch neighbours, the second largest gas producer in the EU, following the United Kingdom, recently decided to dramatically reduce their gas production, and Europe therefore will have to import significantly more gas, and this is one of the reasons why Europe needs to keep all of its gas import options and pipeline gas as well as LNG. Based on the many decades of experience that Uniper and its predecessor entities have in buying natural gas from Russia, I can only emphasize that Europe would be well advised to build another pipeline for transporting gas from Russia to Europe, because it will enhance the security of supply and promote competition on Europe's gas markets, both of which are clearly in the interest of European consumers. And secondly, with regard to the political component, the new pipeline undoubtedly runs counter to the interests of many players, and not only in Ukraine, which has its own profitable transit pipelines, but also in the countries along the Baltic Sea, in some Eastern European countries, in Brussels, and in particular in Washington, D.C. However, I strongly advocate against allowing these interests alone to be the crucial factor for an important infrastructure project in Europe. Where legitimate interests are concerned, there's no doubt that fair solutions will have to be found. However, where the opposition is based solely on maintaining or expanding one's own market power or on antipathy toward Russia, policymakers should now not allow themselves to be deterred. They should be guided by the project's gas industry and economic rationale and push for its implementation. At any rate, we are firmly determined to continue to do so. I'll shift now from our projects in Eastern Europe to our business operations in Western Europe. My first subject is Maasvlakte, our power station in the harbour district of Rotterdam, the Netherlands. This location is unique in Europe. It has access to the sea and the industrial heartland. This enables it to offer a broad portfolio of products that makes it superbly suited to meeting the demands of a modern energy hub now and in the future. It already serves as a reserve power plant to balance out discontinuous renewables output and supplies heat to nearby industrial enterprises. Will thus help secure the region's supply of electricity and heat over the medium term as well. And it can also use alternative fuels. For example, Maasvlakte already co-fires biomass. It's conceivable that in the future it could also co-fire industrial byproducts. Through partnerships with nearby industrial facilities, such as refineries, it's also conceivable that it could produce hydrogen and market some of its carbon dioxide as a chemical feedstock. In partnership with industry, Maasvlakte Power Station can make an important contribution towards securing income and employment in the region well into the future. It's therefore all the more incomprehensible, ladies and gentlemen, that under the Netherlands' new energy strategy, Maasvlakte is scheduled to be decommissioned just 14 years after entry into service by the year 2030. It's obvious that we will have to stand up for our interests and thus for yours. Datteln 4, our new power plant here in the Ruhr region, is affected by damage to its boiler which occurred during pre-commissioning trials and is attributable to the use of what is referred to as T24 steel. A comprehensive analysis of the extent of the damage indicates that a full replacement of the boiler walls is unavoidable. This will further delay the plant's planned entry into service, which is now expected to take place in summer 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Datteln 4 is one of the most technologically advanced hard coal-fired power plants of its type. It will replace numerous older, less efficient power plants in the region. Nevertheless, it will be the last Uniper coal-fired power plant that we will commission, because we're convinced that in terms of new builds, the future of thermal power station belongs to gas. This conviction is reflected in our plan for the Scholven power station in Gelsenkirchen, which provides a range of energy sources to nearby chemical producers. Step by step, we will move to a modern gas-fired power generation, and between now and we intend to gradually convert Scholven from predominant coal-fired generation to technologically advanced gas-fired generation. This is a truly forward-looking project. It will not only reduce air emissions, but also noise emissions, both from the power station itself and from arriving and departing trucks. In addition, the plan calls for areas of the site that are no longer needed to be restored to the natural state or used for new business activities. Uniper will offer a broad range of products that will be produced at the power station and used by nearby industrial sites. The products include electricity, heat, steam, and possibly completely desalinated water and compressed air. Long transport pathways and dispersion losses will be a thing of the past. This will make the Scholven industrial complex highly efficient and climate-friendly. It will also ensure that the northern Ruhr region continues to be supplied with district heat. In short, it will lead to the creation of an energy hub that in its form will be unprecedented in North Australia. The example of Scholven also demonstrates how traditional industrial complex can be transformed through private investors. Existing infrastructure will be adapted so that it gives people in the region new opportunities for the future. So this project, Uniper is actively supporting the efforts of policymakers in the region. At the end of last year, ladies and gentlemen, we fleshed out Uniper's corporate strategy and clearly defined our growth areas. The Scholven project is just one example of how we want to continue to develop Uniper by focusing on the development of innovative solutions and individually tailored products for our major customers. Our main focus is on designing new scalable business models that will help us further develop our existing business. What offsets us from our competitors? Well, like very few other companies, we bring extensive technical as well as commercial expertise to the customer relationship and combine both to the benefit of our customers. We offer new bundled products that are individually tailored to the needs of customers, and we believe that customers will therefore be relieved of worrying about complex energy issues. And a good example of this is our activities in international power generation, which is strategically important as a growth area for Uniper in view of the global rise in energy demand. The new policy scenario of the IEA's World Energy Outlook 2070 predicts that global energy consumption will increase by 30% and natural gas consumption by as much as 45% between 2016 and 2040. We offer potential customers worldwide not only fuel for their generation assets, such as liquefied natural gas, which is becoming increasingly important as an energy source. We supplement fuel supply services with individually tailored energy solutions for power stations, industrial facilities, electricity grids, and gas infrastructure across the entire life cycle of these assets. To ensure that markets perceive us as a reliable energy supplier, we want to significantly expand our LNG portfolio, in part by increasing the amount of LNG we procure from North America and Africa. Alongside our home markets of Europe, our target markets are South America, the Middle East, and Asia, in particular Southeast Asia. So, in short, the regions that import LNG as a fuel for power generation in the future. For example, a while back we signed a memorandum of understanding in the United Arab Emirates to supply power plants with LNG and to build a floating storage and regasification unit, which by means of a new pipeline extends the LNG supply chain to end consumers. This project leverages our engineering skills and our many years of experience in global LNG trading. Growth options for our international power segment include a modernization initiative for older power plants currently being adopted in Russia. Participation in the initiative will be determined by tenders. Capacity payments will provide reliable long-term compensation for the extension of power plants' operating lives. We're currently reviewing the rules of the initiative and options for us to participate in. We expect to make decisions about the project by the end of 2018. These are just a few examples that demonstrate that we're rigorously implementing our new individually tailored strategy in a variety of areas and projects. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll now turn to an event that a year ago, when I welcomed you to the first AGM of Uniper, had not been foreseeable. I'm talking about the efforts made by Fortum of Finland to acquire all of Uniper, or at least a large stake of Uniper. Fortum first visited us in July 2017. Apparently, our good performance had not only impressed many investors, but also Fortum's management. Fortum presented us with their plan to fully acquire and integrate Uniper for a price of 19 euros per share. Neither Uniper's management board nor its supervisory board found this plan convincing. Aside from the fact that the price per share was clearly too low, Fortum's business operations really didn't fit well enough with Uniper's chosen strategy to create a persuasive story for us. Our rejection of the proposal was not at all a rejection of Fortum itself, which is a very respectable company in our industry. Rather was guided by a sober question: do we want to continue on our successful course as an independent company or be integrated into another company with a different business orientation? Our answer to Fortum was clear and unambiguous. We said no. 2 months later, in September, thank you. 2 months later, in September, Fortum made a second attempt, this time in the form of a public takeover offer for 100% of Uniper shares, including E.ON's nearly 47% stake. The Board of Management and the Supervisory Board of Uniper were united in rejecting this offer as well. The outcome demonstrates that nearly all shareholders agreed with our assessment. Less than 0.5% of the shares not held by E.ON were tendered to Fortum. And if I may say so, by retaining your shares, you, our shareholders, made clear that you believe in Uniper's value potential. For this, we'd like to express our sincere thanks. The day before yesterday, the Russian Federal Anti-Monopoly Service approved Fortum's filing under the Federal Law on Foreign Investment to acquire up to 50% of the stock and voting rights in Uniper. After the remaining merger control approvals required in Russia and the EU, Fortum is likely to be able to complete the acquisition of 47.12% of Uniper stock in the next few weeks. The task will then be to reach an agreement with our new major shareholder, Fortum, that reflects the interests of the company, its employees and the shareholders. We will work to lay the groundwork for a constructive working relationship between Fortum and Uniper, because we're convinced that this will promote value creation over the long term from the perspective of both companies. But I'd like to state clearly that this would not in any way alter our intention to remain an independent company, for the simple reason that it's the best foreseeable course for your company, ladies and gentlemen. Our results for the prior year demonstrate that our current course is taking us in the right direction. I'll briefly comment on our key financials for 2017. Our adjusted EBIT of 1.1 billion was fully in line with our outlook. This solid performance was mainly the result of stable earning streams from our generation business in Europe and Russia. We achieved this through operational improvements, although one-off effects also played a role. Positive factors included the receipt of a large portion of the insurance payment for the damage to Berezovskaya 3, the power plant, and favorable developments in Russian ruble exchange rates and significantly lower depreciation charges than in 2016. We also benefit from specific tax reductions on hydro and nuclear power generation in Sweden, as well as compensation in conjunction with capacity markets in France, the United Kingdom and Russia. And not least, cost savings played an important role as well, and I'll say more about this at a later point in time. By contrast, some one-off effects that significantly increased our earnings in 2016 did not recur in 2017. In particular, the agreement with Gazprom on gas supply prices and the unusually high earnings posted by our gas optimization activities. Operating earnings were also adversely affected by the development of power prices on Europe's wholesale markets in recent years, in which we had hedged our future power production at the time. Now, turning to net income, Uniper had to record a consolidated net loss of 538 million euros for 2017, compared with a net loss of 3.2 billion euros in 2016, which had resulted primarily from significant impairment charges on our generation and storage businesses in Europe. The fact that we had to post a loss at all for 2017 is attributable to an accounting effect in conjunction with the sale of our stake in Yuzhno-Russkoye, the gas field. Here is what happened. The sale of the stake required us to record in our P&L account currency translation losses of 890 million euros that had been long recorded in equity. However, this amount was added back to our equity so that on balance there was no reduction in our book value or any change in our equity. None of this had any impact on our operational performance anyway. The generally good development of our operating cash flow led to a significant increase in adjusted funds from operations, adjusted FFO for short. This key metric measures the free cash flow from our operational business, and we use it, among other things, to assess the potential dividend payout to our shareholders. Adjusted FO totaled 753 million euros in 2017, an increase of more than one-third relative to the prior year. This was somewhat higher than we anticipated and gives us the opportunity, in line with our cash flow-based dividend policy, to enable you, dear shareholders, to benefit from this very positive performance. We propose to you that the dividend payout, which was originally to be 250 million euros, be increased slightly to roughly 271 million euros. If this proposal is accepted, the dividend per share would be 74 cents instead of the previous proposal of 69 cents. As you can see, your investment in Uniper is paying off, ladies and gentlemen. Our economic net debt also improved. We reduced it significantly and at an early point in time. At year-end 2017, our net debt stood at only 2.4 billion euros, a decline of roughly 1.8 billion euros, or more than 40%, relative to year-end 2016. As already mentioned, the sale of our stake in Yuzhno-Russkoye gas field was the primary factor for this development, but I'd like to emphasize also that owing to our solid cash flow performance, even without this asset sale, our economic net debt would have slightly decreased compared to the previous year. We're very pleased that Standard & Poor's, the rating agency, upgraded Uniper's rating from BBB- with a positive outlook to BBB flat with a stable outlook, based the upgrade on our strengthened financial situation, also cited improved earnings stability and profitability. So we've therefore achieved our target of a comfortable investment grade rating. The positive performance I've just described gives us flexibility to implement our strategy, but in no way exempts us from our strict investment discipline, which is unavoidable in a continuing challenging market environment. Our investments of 843 million for 2017 were precisely within the target range of 800 to 900 million euros that we had communicated previously. Now, for our assumptions with regard to 2018, we expect our 2018 adjusted EBIT to be between 0.8 and 1.1 billion euros, and our adjusted FFO to be between 0.5 and 0.8 billion euros. Although our adjusted EBIT will be somewhat lower than in 2017, due in particular to disposals, our earnings will be less affected by one-off effects going forward. Instead, earnings will reflect to a much greater extent sustainable operational effects. These include the reduction of the property tax on hydropower plants and the elimination of the tax on nuclear power plants in Sweden, income from the UK, capacity markets, and income from optimization activities in power, coal, and LNG trading. And regarding our improved cost situation, which is an indispensable prerequisite for us to compete successfully in the highly competitive energy marketplace, I can report today that our Voyager program is nearly completed. From 2018 onwards, our annual controllable costs will be 400 million lower. We've achieved this mainly through lower costs of materials in our operations and in administration, as well as lower personnel expenses. I'm pleased that we've succeeded in carrying out the necessary personnel adjustments in a socially acceptable manner by means of extensive social support mechanism. I'd like to take this opportunity to say special thanks to our employee representatives for their constructive attitude towards a process that hasn't always been easy. So lead to a sustainable improvement in the quality of our company's earnings. We plan to propose a dividend of about 310 million euros for the year 2018, and we're also standing by our intention to increase dividend by an average of 25% between 2016 and 2020, despite the developments And we stick to this despite the developments in the Datteln 4 power plant new build project, which required an impairment charge of about 270 million euros. I'd like to emphasize that this solid performance has been delivered in an environment that makes our success anything but a given. We've been surrounded by change and challenges, both in the political arena and on energy markets, and 2017 was no exception in that respect. Last year, we had a super election year in Europe. Countries in which elections were held included the United Kingdom, France, the Netherlands, Austria, and Germany. Fortunately, the European idea was generally preserved and pro-European forces prevailed, at least overwhelmingly. This also applies to a common energy and climate policy in Europe, of which the EU Emissions Trading Scheme, or ETS for short, is an essential element. I'm firmly convinced that the ETS is the most sensible mechanism of European climate policy. Many years of excessively low prices prevented the ETS from serving its function. But the reforms adopted in November seem to be working. The price for a metric ton of carbon, which just a year ago was €5, now stands at around €16. Starting in 2019, the supply of carbon emission allowances will be significantly cut back, which can be expected to lead to further price increases. Uniper welcomes these developments because we've always advocated the ETS as the guiding mechanism of EU climate policy. We oppose policy actions by nation states, such as the minimum carbon prices. They run counter to the objective of strengthening the single European energy market and will have no positive impact on the Earth's climate. Ladies and gentlemen, although Uniper is active worldwide, Germany remains an important market for us. That's why after last fall's Bundestag elections, which we followed the formation of the new federal government with great interest, it's no secret that the business performance of a company active in the energy industry is strongly influenced by energy policy decisions. And even 20 years after the liberalization of Germany's electricity and gas markets, many aspects of its future energy market design are still unresolved. Conflicting energy policy objectives and increasingly prevalent market interventions have significantly dampened the positive effects of liberalization. In some respects, one can hardly call it a market anymore. There's actually more than enough to do for a new federal government in Germany. The coalition agreement concluded after tough negotiations, however, contains very few specifics regarding Germany's energy policy, which is regrettable because important energy policy decisions are pending in many areas. For one thing, such decisions are needed to help make the energy transition, which the Chancellor declared a top priority, a success. Although the coalition agreement identifies some important energy policy issues, it hardly begins to propose solutions. But we also see opportunities. The previous negotiations to form a coalition of CDU, CSU, FDP and the Greens included a heated debate about phasing out coal-fired power generation. Now the debate can take place in hopefully more objective atmosphere than the government-appointed commission, that although at the moment the Commission appears to be having some teething problems, but another important point on this issue must not be lost sight of under any circumstance, because if Germany can no longer ensure that it has a secure supply of energy, the massive and ambitious project known as the energy transition will very quickly lose public support. And an honest debate must consider the fact that electricity produced by highly efficient and flexible power plants will be needed for many years to come to balance out the discontinuous output from renewable sources. Sections of the coalition agreement on support for infrastructure for imported LNG or support for energy storage give cause to hope that they will be translated into more concrete proposals. The coalition agreement also opens the door to opportunities in cogeneration. If properly designed, such policies could create new business opportunities for Uniper in this area. Regrettably, the coalition agreement does not consider the contribution that gas can make towards the success of the energy transition. Conventional natural gas or green gas produced from renewables. Unfortunately, the energy transition is still narrowly interpreted as the decarbonization of power generation. Opportunities of sector coupling by means of climate-friendly gas are still underestimated. Despite various interventions, apparently a continuity to the market, neither are the existing problems with the secure supply of power and gas mentioned, nor are mechanisms for ensuring the security in the future outlined. What direction should Germany's energy policy take in the years ahead? What Germany needs, and this isn't exactly a new insight, is a healthy balance between climate friendliness, supply security, and affordability. And Germany won't achieve this by converting all of its energy use to electricity, as has been frequently discussed in the recent past. Fortunately, there seems to be a growing realization that Germany's energy market design needs to be technology neutral. This means that for each particular application, priority should be given to the most efficient technology available. For some applications, this may indeed be electricity-based solutions. Nevertheless, we must carefully consider which energy solution offers the best balance between climate friendliness, security of supply, and affordability. And this brings me back to gas, a tried and tested source of energy. At least during the transition to a fully renewable era, this proven energy source best achieves this balance in many applications, from power generation, industry, to transport and residential applications. Germany has numerous highly flexible gas-fired power plants, many of which are part of our generation fleet. They can come online swiftly at any time if renewables output is insufficient to meet demand. As far as gas transport pipelines and gas storage facilities are concerned, Germany's gas infrastructure is already fully adequate even for periods of peak demand, and there's no need to add a lot more infrastructure. Moreover, natural gas will remain readily available for many decades to come, and owing to an increasing liquid global gas market at competitive prices as well. All this goes hand in hand with what is perhaps gas's biggest advantage, is the lowest carbon emissions of any fossil fuel. Green gas, which is produced from renewable sources, takes climate friendliness to a new level. A good example is the methanization plant in Falkenhagen in Germany that we recently commissioned with our project partners ThyssenKrupp, DVGW, and the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. This plant formerly produced green hydrogen, also known as wind gas, and injected it into the gas pipeline system. Now it can do the same with green methane. This can make an important contribution to the success of the energy transition, and that's because, unlike green hydrogen, green methane can be used in more applications and in different sectors such as heat, industry and mobility. Moreover, it can be transported and stored in the natural gas infrastructure without limitation. Stored green methane is always available to ensure supply security, especially when not enough solar and wind energy is being produced. However, this sensible partnership between renewables and gas has one flaw. Neither gas-fired power plants nor gas storage facilities, both of which are indispensable for Germany's security supply, can be operated economically under the existing market design. The previous federal government opted for a 100% market-based approach to both types of asset. As a result, security supply that these assets ensure outside the market through their operational readiness isn't sufficiently compensated or remunerated. This bears the risk that there may be closure of more power plant and storage facilities because they are economically unavoidable. Yet these assets are very valuable to the German economy now, and above all will be very valuable to it in the future. And we work to help secure Germany's supply of gas. We're counting on the support of the new federal government. Germany urgently needs a competition-based support mechanism for power plants like the mechanisms already existing in France and the UK. Finally, needs to adopt a regulatory framework for gas storage facilities that enables these assets to be operated cost-effectively. Above all, this includes the elimination of double levies on both injection and withdrawal at gas storage facilities and the elimination of gas quality conversion charge and market area conversion charge. The federal government should act very quickly in this area. Energy industry has already sent some proposals to Berlin. They finally need to be implemented. We as Uniper would be glad to offer our expertise to the German federal government in order to create a balanced power and gas market design that meets the challenges of the energy transition and provides reliability for the years ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to visit the exhibits located between the entrance tent and in the lobby of the Grugahalle. You'll find this information about your company's portfolio of offerings about many topics relating to the energy industry of tomorrow. Exhibits are staffed by many of our highly knowledgeable employees and trainees and apprentices, and they would be happy to talk to you. Finally, I'd like to announce that this fall, the employees at our various offices in Düsseldorf will be brought together at a single site in Düsseldorf's Media Harbour, consisting of an office building we are already using and another leased office building in the immediate proximity that's currently under construction. Our next annual shareholders meeting in May 2018 won't be held in Essen anymore, but rather in Düsseldorf, city from which we manage all our businesses. To conclude my remarks, dear shareholders, I'd like to emphasize once again that your Uniper is making very good progress. As we promised last year, we achieved all of our financial targets. Your company is significantly better positioned, both operationally and strategically. Uniper's financial position has improved substantially, and its rating is at our target level, BBB, a comfortable investment grade. Since our stock market listing less than 2 years ago, Uniper's market capitalization, and thus the total value of our stock, has increased by more than 6 billion euros, or by more than 160%. All of this was only possible because during this time we enjoyed your trust and your support. On behalf of the members of the Board of Management and our managers and the employees of Uniper, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for your support. We'd like to ask you for your continued support in the future so that we can continue to pursue our successful course. Thank you very much.
Meine sehr geehrten
Shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, I will certainly speak on your behalf as well, thanking Herr Schäfer for his comprehensive and clear report. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to move on to the report of the Supervisory Board. You can also find it in its extensive version in the management report in printed form on pages 4 through 7. Therefore, I'd only like to be brief and give you a summary and a few explanations on the activities of the Supervisory Board in the past fiscal year. In fiscal 2017, the Supervisory Board of Uniper SE dealt with relevant issues for the company in 5 ordinary meetings and 5 extraordinary meetings. There was a total of 15 committee meetings, including 4 executive committee meetings, 4 times the Audit and Risk Committee met, 1 times the Nominations Committee, and 6 times the Special Committee, which was created for the takeover facts, which is where the discussions and decisions of the Supervisory Boards were prepared and discussed. Activity reports from the committees were also dealt with at the subsequent meetings of the Supervisory Board in detail. Ladies and gentlemen, with regard to HR, 2017 was shaped by 2 changes on the Supervisory Board. Dr. Johannes Theissen did not stand as a candidate for the shareholders' side again, and therefore he left the Supervisory Board of Uniper SE upon expiry of the last AGM. His successor was David Davis, who was elected to the Supervisory Board by the AGM. Additionally, Andreas Scheidt also stepped down as a member of the Supervisory Board of Uniper SE upon expiry of the last AGM. In line with an agreement about the involvement of employees in Uniper SE, Herr Immo Schlepper was appointed his successor. He is at the Verdi Regional District of Low Saxony-Bremen. On the Management Board of Uniper SE, however, there were no changes in terms of staff. Ladies and gentlemen, the last year was characterized by a challenging market environment. At the same time, energy markets in Germany and Europe recovered in the second half of the year, which went parallel with increasing feedstock and energy prices in national and international markets. However, power generation margins remained at a very low level. At the same time, the focus on the second half of the year was very much the surprising sale of the 46.65% share held by E.ON SE, which came as a surprise for Uniper SE, and the takeover bid by Fortum Deutschland SE. This topic substantially shaped the work of the Supervisory Board in 2017. I'm going to speak about this in detail later. In operational terms, 2017 was characterized for Uniper by progress in essential projects in power plants, our commitment in projects to ensure energy supplies, and activities to further reduce our net debt. In addition, further restructuring of the company and an adjustment of our cost structure to the tense market environment were a focus of ours. With a view to operations, we extensively dealt with price developments in national and international energy markets and the economic situation of the group. We were continuously updated by the Board of Management about them. In actual terms, we looked into the asset, financial and earnings situation, our staffing development, and the earnings opportunities and risks of Uniper SE and of the Uniper Group. On a regular basis, we also dealt with the development of foreign exchange which was relevant for Uniper. On a regular basis, the Supervisory Board was informed about developments in terms of health, safety and in the environment, especially on the grounds of key performance parameters. Another focus was on activities in order to increase diversity in the company and to ensure sustainability of the Uniper business, especially in the coal value chain. Other superior topics of our consultations were the development of European and German energy policies, the progress in regulations and the overall economic situation in countries where Uniper is active, especially with a view to the respective consequences for the various operations of Uniper. The strategy of the company and its further development were discussed and adopted in detail. Furthermore, approaches for innovation and digitization were discussed. The strategy also included divestments thought of by the company. This included the divestment of shares in the Yuzhno-Russkoye gas field, with which the Supervisory Board dealt with in detail. This transaction was completed successfully in November 2017. Current developments of our business activities were discussed in detail. The Management Board informed us about the continuation of the commissioning of the French power plant Provence 4 when it came to generation activities. In addition, the Supervisory Board was continuously updated about the status of the new project, Datteln 4 in Germany. Furthermore, we continuously discussed the progress of the repair works for the Russian power plant Beryozovskaya 3 and also released the budget necessary for it. As for our global trading business, we were extensively informed about new procurement and supply contracts, and we were also updated about our commitment in the pipeline project called Nord Stream 2. We also approved the respective funds needed. In the LNG business, we dealt with the activities in order to develop a business in the United Arab Emirates and with transactions pertaining to our long-term regasification capacities in Europe. New business approaches included a coal joint venture in the US and a cooperation with SOCAR in Azerbaijan and the development of energy services in India and South Africa. Additionally, the Management Board discussed the funding needs of the Uniper Group with us in detail and obtained the respective approval in order to start a commercial paper program at the beginning of the year. We were also updated about the development of the Uniper share in the market, the shareholder structure and analyst valuations. As it was, we also dealt with a view of the most prominent analyst houses on the ratings of the companies. Pleasantly enough, the up-and-coming European rating agency Scope granted a BBB plus rating to Uniper in 2017. In addition, we discussed the midterm budget of the Uniper Group for years 2018 through 2020 with the Management Board on the basis of updated assumptions on the long-term development of energy and commodity prices, capacity market premiums and seasonal price differences, and we approved of the budget for 2018. With a view to the necessary adjustment of cost and organizational structures to the difficult market environment, the Management Board gave us continuous and extensive information about the restructuring program undertaken for this purpose and agreements on the level of collective bargaining agreements and out with that level. With a legal view, The Management Board gave us extensive information about current trials, processes and negotiations, for example, pertaining to long-term supply contracts. Ladies and gentlemen, in the second half of the year under review, as I mentioned before, the activities of the Supervisory Board were characterized very much by the takeover offer by Fortum to the shareholders of Uniper SE. The Supervisory Board dealt with this in several ordinary and extraordinary meetings and had clear consultations, close consultations with the Management Board. For this purpose, the Supervisory Board formed a special committee that inter alia dealt with the legal, strategic, regulatory and financial implications of the takeover offer. A key component of our work on the Supervisory Board and on the Special Committee was to develop the statement, the founded statement provided on the 21st of November 2017 in accordance with Section 2017 of the German Wertpapiererwerbs- und Übernahmegesetzes, WPUG, on the voluntary public tender offer by Fortum. The Supervisory Board also dealt with the special non-financial report as per the 31st of December 2017 compiled by the Management Board. A limited assurance was conducted by an auditing company where an unqualified audit opinion was granted. The Management Board explained the documents during the meetings in detail. The representatives of the auditing company also gave us the results of their audit in detail and answered additional questions. After its checks, after its due diligence, the Supervisory Board raised no objections. Lastly, the activity reports from these Supervisory Board committees were also discussed in detail. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supervisory Board audited the annual statements of Uniper SE and the consolidated statements as for the 31st of December 2017, the summary management report of the Management Board for fiscal 2017, and the proposal for the appropriation of retained earnings, and also taken note of the audit report by the auditors of the annual statements, including the unqualified audit opinion. These documents were available to you in good form, together with the documents available under item 1 of today's annual general meeting's agenda. After having checked all the documents, the Supervisory Board has raised no objections. The annual financial statements completed by the Management Board were approved by the Supervisory Board at its meeting on the 7th of March and thus officially adopted. Likewise, the Supervisory Board approved of the consolidated statements. The summary management report, especially statements on further company development, were given a positive mark by the Supervisory Board. The proposal for the appropriation of retained earnings by the Management Board to the tune of 0.74 per dividend-bearing share was also checked by us with regard to the financial situation of the companies. This is in line with the company's interests concerning the shareholders' interests. Weighing all pros and cons, we've agreed with the management to this appropriation proposal. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now speak about Management Board matters. As you will have seen in the press, as per March 2018, we extended Keith Martin's appointment by another 5 years, that is, from 2019 until the end of February 2024. So his employment contract will be extended by another 5 years, just the same. Thus, we created a key prerequisite in order to continue on the successful path on our trading business led by Keith Martin. At the same time, this sign of continuity strengthens the confidence on behalf of staff, business partners and other stakeholders in Uniper. The whole Supervisory Board would like to thank Mr. Martin for his extraordinary commitment and is looking forward to continued good cooperation. In addition, the Supervisory Board has established the performance level of the Management Board members for 2017. They were mainly measured on the grounds of adjusted funds from operations, adjusted FFO, and with a value of 155%, the very good business performance of 2017 was reflected. Adjusted FFO was substantially above the expectations at a level of 753 million euros, and it was above the previous year's level as well. The individual performance factor for all management board members was established at a uniform level of 100% due to the high number of team goals. In this context, I'd also like to point out that as a commitment to the restructuring program called Voyager, the Management Board has offered to reduce its own remuneration. The Supervisory Board thus decided to lower the components of base pay, annual bonus, long-term variable remuneration, and contributions for old age pensions for the Management Board members from 2018 by an average of approximately 7%. This reduction applies for all current appointments, including the extension of Keith Martin. The Supervisory Board welcomes this signal sent out by the Management Board, by leaders and employees. All of them are carrying the brunt of these savings activities together. Lastly, the obligation to buy shares for the Management Board members was suspended in connection with the shares offered by E.ON to Fortum. This was necessary in order to preclude a risk of directors' dealings a priori. This should be reinstated as soon as the current proceedings with Fortum will be completed. The Supervisory Board decided at today's meeting to continue the obligation to buy shares after the performance of the takeover, after the acquisition. I'd like to close on this note the Supervisory Board report, and I'd like to move on to the other items on the agenda. Item 2 pertains to the draft resolution, the proposal to appropriate retained earnings. At present, the company doesn't hold any own shares, so this doesn't need to be updated. So, like before, the draft resolution is to use the balance sheet earnings of Uniper SE for fiscal 2017 to the tune of 270 million euros, 810,400 euros, by paying out a dividend to the tune of 74 euro cents for each dividend-bearing no par value share. Items 3 and 4 provide for a discharging of the acting members of the Management Board and Supervisory Board for fiscal 2017. Item 5 would then deal with the election of the auditors of the annual statements. This includes the annual financial statements, but also an appointment for possible interim statements. This is also subject to this vote. Within the legal deadline, Uniper SE received a request to supplement the agenda by one shareholder, Cornwall SARL, based in Luxembourg. According to this agenda supplement request, the new item 6 on the agenda would mean the decision about appointing a special auditor. According to the request, this should deal with the following processes, and may I quote, firstly, all actions and measures taken by the Management Board of Uniper SE since the 20th of September 2017 in connection with the voluntary public takeover offer of Fortum Deutschland SE for the acquisition of the no par value registered shares in Uniper SE, as well as the intended, potential and actual consequences of these actions and measures for the success of the takeover offer, as well as all related internal and external communication of the Management Board of Uniper SE. In particular, any communication with regulatory authorities, whether direct or indirect, via employees, group companies or external advisors. Secondly, all actions and measures taken by the Management Board of Uniper SE since the 20th of September 2017 in connection with the takeover offer and the clearance of the takeover under the Russian Strategic Investments Act vis-à-vis the Russian subsidiary Unipro and/or Russian regulatory authorities, as well as the intended, potential and actual consequences of these actions and measures for the success of the takeover offer. In particular, all actions and measures relating to the registration of Unipro in the Register of Natural Monopolies and the resulting qualification of Unipro as a strategic investment under Russian law, as well as all related internal and external communications of the Management Board of Uniper SE, in particular any communication with Russian regulatory authorities, whether direct or indirect, via employees, etc. Unquote. The Supervisory Board already provided a written statement on the 30th of May 2018 on the company's pages with regard to this special request. It is assumed in the reasoning of this request that the Management Board of Uniper SE had taken activities and triggered activities suitable for obstructing or even stopping the takeover offer of the Finnish utilities company Fortum Oil as per the 7th of November of 2017 to acquire all no-par-value shares of Uniper. The Supervisory Board dealt with the topic of the takeover offer, the takeover bid, intensively after the public announcement of the Fortum takeover offer on the 26th of September 2017 in 6 Supervisory Board meetings and 9 meetings of a special committee. In connection with the receipt of the special request motion, the Supervisory Board undertook a detailed analysis of these facts and circumstances in 2 Supervisory Board meetings and at a special committee meeting. There were no indications for an infringement of duties on behalf of the Management Board, and they're not even explained in the special request. So the Supervisory Board recommends to reject the draft proposal on item 6. There is no good cause for the shareholder Cornwall Luxembourg to appoint a special auditor. This is not in the interest of Uniper or of its shareholders. The focus in dealing with the Fortum takeover offer for the Supervisory Board and Management Board was on the preparation and completion of a founded opinion according to Section 27 of the WPUG Act as per the 21st of November 2017. As we all know, the Management Board and Supervisory Board recommended the shareholders, as was explained and given reasons for in the Uniper statement, not to accept the Fortum takeover bid. This opinion was also reiterated by the Management Board in the aftermath in interviews and announcements. In Finland, the Management Board saw itself triggered to show several unilateral depictions in an online campaign triggered by Fortum. The Management Board ensured the Supervisory Board that they didn't have anything to do with the discrediting press campaign for Fortum in Russia. What was also important for the valuation of a Fortum takeover bid for the Management Board were the potential consequences on the subsidiary of Uniper and various subsidiaries. This is also true for national reservations of approval. This is also true for the Russian Unipro, a public company in Russia which operates power plants in 5 locations. So the Management Board arrived at the insight that and conclusion that a takeover of Uniper by Fortum might necessitate an approval under the Russian Act on Strategic Investments. Due to the water activities of Unipro. Due to its water activities, Unipro performs strategic activities as it performs water activities and is using licensed activators of bacteria. So it is performing as a strategic company for the purposes of this law. Acquiring control over a strategic company is basically inadmissible by a company that is controlled by a different state. such as Fortum. The management board knew that the performance of a transaction would be null and void under the Russian law of strategic investments, under Russian law. And in the event of an execution outside Russia, this would at least mean that voting rights in the Russian company would be withdrawn. Within the Uniper group, this would have meant a deconsolidation of Unipro in the consolidated statements of the Uniper group, potentially, which would then have led to a significant deterioration of consolidated financial indicators and the ratings of Uniper, with negative reverberations on the global energy trading business as well. With Uniper and with Unipro, however, you would also have had to expect substantial reductions of dividend as well. So in the interest of Uniper and its shareholders, the management board of Uniper saw itself in a position to contact the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service of Russia, the FAS, with a view to the potential application of the Russian Act on Strategic Investments. In the correspondence subsequently, Uniper brought to the attention of the FAS in early October 2017 the announced Fortum takeover bid and the potential applicability of the Russian Act on Strategic Investments. Uniper sent a copy of this letter to FAS in parallel to Fortum, even before the takeover bid was made published for information purposes. The basic concern of the management board of Uniper was that the takeover of Uniper by Fortum could mean a violation of the Russian Act on Strategic Investments with the described substantial adverse consequences for Uniper and Unipro. But this was then eliminated with special conditions in the Fortum takeover bid and the starting of a release procedure by the FAS in December 2017. Further correspondence between Uniper and FAS and the meeting in February 2018 concerned the issue of the classification of Unipro as a strategic company and the legal valuation of controlling shareholdings. Unipro's property or capacity as a strategic company was given from the very outset due to its power plant-related water activities and was at no point in time questioned by the FAS. In the special audit motion, item 6, however, it is alluded to, that the classification of Unipro as a strategic company and the applicability of the Russian Act on Strategic Investments had only been triggered by the management board of Uniper as a response to the Fortum takeover bid. The registration of Unipro's water activities on the site of Surgutskaya power plant as a natural monopoly on the 30th of January was applied for by Unipro after the end of a conflict which had been going on since 2006 with Russian authorities about the classification of a guaranteeing supplier, a utilities company, with a force to supply to the general public. This was in late 2017, November 2017. Unipro said this was about a conclusive clarification of the legal situation and to provide for a formally correct state. The management board of Uniper had no legal means to influence Unipro. The registration of natural monopolies in Russia serves publicity and transparency, especially with a view to the operations of natural monopolies and their special regulations and rules. So prices set by authorities might have to apply, and so does a need to provide to the general public, and certain transactions might be subject to the FAS decisions. The registration as a natural monopoly was internally considered by Unipro as a purely administrative matter, which would be decided on a working level. And on behalf of the management board of Uniper, there were no aspects that would have been indicated non-compliance on behalf of Unipro. Lastly, the registration by Unipro, on one hand, and the clarification of legal situation was by Uniper with AFAS was a coincidence of two independent processes. Lastly, the whole matter focuses around a decision that was to be taken by a Russian authority independently and on the grounds of its own legal valuation and in its own accountability, without any potential for influencing by the management of Uniper. For information purposes, I would like to inform you that the Russian FAS anti-monopoly authority 2 days ago approved of the application of Fortum under the Russian Act for Strategic Investments 2 days ago and has granted an approval to acquire up to 50% of shares and voting rights in Uniper. The only approvals pending are those in Russia and the EU under merger law. As soon as these will be available, the takeover bid can be performed. We have to assume that this will be the case in the next weeks. Other possible activities and measures on behalf of the management board that would have obstructed or could have obstructed the Fortum takeover bid are not recognizable for the supervisory board. Against the backdrop of the dealing with the facts in connection with the Fortum takeover bid and the legal valuation, there are no indications for infringements of duties on behalf of the management board. They are not even explained in the motion to appoint a special auditor and its reasoning. The supervisory board believes that the management board acted on the grounds of sufficient information, taken into account all legal stipulations and those under the Articles of Association, and acted with due care for the benefit of the Uniper company and its shareholders, and acted as a prudent businessman. In particular, it hasn't infringed on the obstruction ban for the purposes of the German WPUG Act. It has suitably used its restricted right for outward communication. It was supported by consultants, experienced consultants in connection with the takeover bid, and there's not any expectation that a special audit would bring about any new facts. A legal revaluation would not take place in connection with a special audit anyway. The expenses and the effort for a special audit are necessary and not appropriate. As for further detail, I would like to refer to the already mentioned publications and the documents available at the information desk in the lobby. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we've introduced the agenda, so we can move on to the general debate, where you can present your contributions and ask questions. First,